Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Walter Sterling, The Other Side of Midnight with Megan Medic. My gosh, look at this. She is involved with a project called Unreported, which takes a deep dive look at the stories others gloss over or blow off. She talks about MK Ultra. Now, I've heard about MK Ultra always late at night my whole life. When I started listening to all-night radio and late-night radio, I heard MK Ultra always spoken of in secret terms. And the truth is that, like most people, I don't really understand what it is other than mysterious and probably evil. Let's start there, Megan. What is MK Ultra?
Well, hey, Walter, thank you so much for having me. Look, MK Ultra should really scare people. This is all about mind control. It was a secret government program. And I say was in the past tense because that's what the internet's going to tell you, is that this was from the 50s and ended in the 70s. But I talk to many people who say that this still is going on and that they're still being surveillanced by the government. But really, this was a Cold War tactic to basically get a monopoly on people's minds. You know, the U.S. and the Soviet Union were really going at it. And this was like a not, hey, we're going to do an old school battle. This was like, hey, space race, this, that, mind control. So they were taking people, you know, sometimes prisoners, other times completely innocent, random people off the street and using psychedelics to basically run experiments on, hey, can we get you to think a certain way or do a certain thing? So it's actually terrifying to me when you think about it and break it down.
Make it medic. Do you believe it was effective? This may have been something that the CIA or some government body kept experimenting with and trying, their great fantasy to control all of us with mind control. Do you think it worked?
You know, it probably did. We talked to so many people on the show Unreported and Reality Check who are people who were so deep in the program with the CIA and that they say, you know, I could do these things and it can control our minds. And I personally think that this led into Project Stargate. This was the gateway drug into Project Stargate, which is remote viewing. And I have talked to many people who have said, yes, Project Stargate is real. We know that. But not only that, I can do remote viewing. And remote viewing is when you say, hey, you know, you're sitting in your house, you're like, hey, I can't find my keys. And someone who doesn't know you can sketch out the location or tell you where they are in a drawer or whatever. And people who are part of the remote viewing program with the CIA, some of them died very mysterious deaths because did they get too good at it? I don't know. It's a little fishy and there's a lot of cases there, but mind control is a very tricky thing. And the use of psychedelics really was a champion for that. So if it's still happening, I mean, look at the hit program Stranger Things. A lot of people say that what they see in Stranger Things is kind of a reflection of MK Ultra and Project Stargate.
News Nation's Megan Medic. There are people who believe that even though MK Ultra stopped, that the government says we don't do that anymore, there are many people who say, I am still being followed, I'm still being surveyed, I still believe that MK Ultra has a control of me. Are these people just paranoid and crazy?
Well, that's always, you know, option number one. You know, and especially the shows that we do when we look at these fringe topics, so to speak, that's obviously we always want to take that lens as well. We want to critically think about everything. We don't just want to give air to, you know, crazy claims because this stuff does sound crazy. We know that. We're critical thinkers. You know, we're paid to look into this stuff and think about it. So, of course, we want to say, oh, that person's crazy or this or that. But when you hear a bunch of stories from people who don't actually know each other and they all kind of have the same story, sometimes you're like, okay, I don't want to write it off. That's why the show is called Unreported. I don't want to write off something because somebody says it and it sounds crazy. You know, a lot of conspiracy theories are showing back that they're true now. So it could be crazy. You know, I talked to a guy a couple of weeks ago who detailed for me very specifically how he was a part of Project Stargate and how they got him at his school when he was young. And I point blank asked him, I was like, how did you get out? And he said, I don't think I'm out. He was like, I think that they're still watching me. And I said, well, that makes sense to me because you worked for Raytheon, a massive government contractor, and they stationed him in Antarctica. So it's just as interesting, all these puzzle pieces kind of connecting of like, yeah, you might still be being watched by the government. I don't doubt that whatsoever.
I don't doubt it either. What I do wonder is, what is the point? Here's a person who may or may not have worked with them, recruited him from school. Why would they still be watching these people? Why? What is the point of still watching? And what is it that MK Ultra wanted their subjects to do?
Yeah. Well, we wanted to make sure that we could control the Soviet Union's minds because, you know, we were focused on
Chicago's WGN.
I think capitalism is probably the bad word for it, but we wanted to focus on something different than the Soviet Union. You know, they were using, you know, the Wall of Berlin and all these different tactics, and we were trying to, you know, create democracy. So we want them to think like us, and they want us to think like them. So the point of it is really to control people's minds, which is scary. So why would they still be watching people? Because maybe, you know, they got too good at it. Maybe now they're a whistleblower, or maybe they're going to go to the government and say, hey, I'm going to blow the top on this, and I'm going to show you what the CIA did to me, and then you're going to get in trouble. And the whole facade of the U.S. government being for the people might actually come crumbling down, which is something that the government fiercely wants to protect. And this is kind of what we saw last week. 2 weeks ago, Congress announced that they were going to hold a hearing on MK Ultra, and then the day before, they canceled it. And they said that some of the people who they had as witnesses coming forward had to bail out for very, quote, very serious concerns. And then you look at the comments. So Rep. Anna Paulina Luna from Florida posted this on X. And then you look at all the comments, and there's so many people saying, I'll testify. I was in it. Call me. I'll do it. So to me, it doesn't seem like there's a shortage of witnesses. It almost seems like the government's trying to say, hey, we're going to do this to make you think we're being proactive for government corruption, but then, you know, kind of pulling the rug out from under us from last minute. So is it disclosure or disclosure tease? I'm not sure.
Megan Medic, News Nation, on the next episode of Unreported, on the MK Ultra episode, what are some of the things we can expect to learn?
Well, when you watch my episode of MK Ultra, I really dive deep into what is the MK Ultra 2.0, what is happening right now that is almost the equivalent of MK Ultra. And we talk about how that is AI and your smartphone and tracking and social media, and how we're basically handing our brains over to billionaires who have, you know, a certain ideology that we might not be aware of, and you just think you're on TikTok having fun. But really, how fast could it be for somebody to feed you information into your algorithm and make you think a different way or change your mind? So that's really what we dive into on Unreported in regards to MK Ultra is, you know, how do you protect yourself now from the addictiveness of algorithms in your phone, because, you know, you're using it for everything, and, you know, there's cookies and tracking and location, and you're all over the map with your phone and the internet. So, and even your online shopping. I mean, I'm the most guilty of that. Like they know how to get me with the bags. You know, they know how to advertise for me because they know my personal preferences, like the data that we're handing over willingly. So on Unreported, that's really what we're diving into is, you know, I can't solve MK Ultra from the early 50s to the early 70s. I can't solve that, but looking ahead, it just makes me think, what's happening now that's so similar to mind control that we can just make people aware of? How can we make everyone aware that there's something going on that, you know, you might not know about in the palm of your hand?
My biggest concern about AI is, why the hell does it need so much water? I'm like, really? Because, in the 50s, radio transmitters had cooling pools outside of them for the big AM stations. I knew why they needed water. I thought digital and transistors would not be needing cooling towers. Do you know, there's a great story of a town in Georgia, and they had a reservoir, and sure enough, one of those information data centers was being built, and the data center tapped into their reservoir without permission, without telling the water company, without being metered. They just stole like all the water for free.
Yeah, that's not great. That's not what you're supposed to do.
That's bad PR. Bad PR.
Yeah.
Besides, and I've had situations, as I'm sure you have, where I'll be on the phone with somebody and I'll say, I really would like to go bass fishing. And then the next time I go on TikTok, boom, there's an ad for bass fishing reels. That I'd never seen before, never mentioned it before. If I talk about most anything on that phone, I'm going to see an ad on TikTok moments later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's instantaneous, always listening, kind of creepy.
The other creepy thing, just FYI, always worth exploring, is those smart water meters that they put on our houses a few years ago, and they got rid of the nice old mechanical ones, and they put on the smart water meters on our house. They listen. They know if we're home.
Oh, gosh, I don't like that at all.
They know if we're home. And the excuse is to protect us, so we can tell if nobody's home and there's still water running.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not buying that whatsoever. Nice try, water meter company.
Yeah, like
Ron,
what? Really?
Not buying it.
All right. Any other reason that we should watch this terrific report, and how can we see it?
Yeah, we're releasing new episodes every single Wednesday. It's a long-form podcast on News Nation's YouTube. It's called Unreported. We have an awesome episode coming out this week where I talk to a lifelong experiencer of the UFO phenomena with never-before-seen videos. It's the first interview he's ever done. And we really explore the topic of religion and unidentified anomalous phenomenon. And, we have this one video where he asks this glowing orb, like, are you from Jesus? And the orb is almost communicating back with him. But we're all over the place, because tomorrow I'm doing an interview with a guy about kamikaze dolphins, back to the Cold War of, like, why are we training dolphins to do our dirty work? So I'm really just my career has been executive producing, and I executive produced for News Nation for a long time, TV shows. So I'm really taking that executive producer lens and looking for the stories that I love, that I think can go so deep that, your TV show is going to glance over in 30 seconds when there's just more there. So unfortunately, I find a lot of things extremely fascinating. So I'm really relying on the viewers to tell me what to focus on, because I'll do anything. I kamikaze dolphins we're doing an Jeffrey Epstein Ranch episode tomorrow as well. So we've got a docket full of great stuff of stories that surround the phenomenon, or just everyday things that people are actually talking about. So super excited to be doing it and having these conversations with really smart people.
It sounds like a tight playlist of the hits that I would enjoy. Tell me about the UFO show. Tell me about this UFO person.
Yeah, so this is a guy, his name is David Russell, and he literally tells me stories from his teenage years up until present day. I mean, we message each other on the regular now that we did the interview. We just became friends. It was a great conversation that we had. So now, he's still sending me videos. Basically, these huge orbs basically appear to him when he goes outside or is alone. And, he's tracked flight radars, and he's, talked to his friends in the government, and he's come and he's shown them, and he can say, are you there? And it'll flash, and it'll almost communicate back with him. And it's followed him around the world, and he has the videos to back it up. When I first talked to him before we did the interview, we just did a phone call. Hey, how are you? Like, nice to meet you. Tell me a little about your story. And I hadn't seen any of the videos. And I was like, this sounds nuts. And then he's like, okay, I want to do it. Like, let me send you the videos. And he sent me the videos, and I'm like, these are so good. And there's many witnesses in the videos with him, and he's, in his driveway, he's across the world, he's outside, and he talks, and he's a Christian, as am I, so we really get into, what do you think this is, like from a religious standpoint to not a religious standpoint, like when they didn't appear to him, to a time, he saw a demon, but he's a wonderful person with an incredible story, and I'm so thankful that he entrusted me with the videos and giving me this interview. It's the first time he's ever speak publicly about this or shown the videos. So I feel so honored. And, the next day after we did the interview, we messaged, and he was like, I thought I would feel so much regret for talking about it. He was like, I don't. I loved it, and I can't wait to see it. So I'm excited to show everybody and get the videos out there and just kind of give his story, because he's a normal guy. And I'm sure other people are experiencing things like this as well. But the videos are extremely compelling, and it's a fun conversation. We have a lot of fun too.
Megan Medic, News Nation. Megan, the bad news is, now that you've given me your playlist of hits, you're just going to have to come on a regular basis. We're just going to have to share this time on a regular basis. Now, I convinced poor Ross Coulthart to do that, and he's in Australia, so you have no excuse at all.
I really don't. I have no excuses, and I'm more than happy. If people are interested, I'm happy to do it. It shocks me every day when people are like, "We like that." I'm like, I'm just a normal person doing who knows what, playing it by ear. So I love it.
Well, that's why it works. If you were a fringe character, it wouldn't work. But I thank you, Megan. You're terrific. Thank you for being on News Nation. When does the MK Ultra drop?
It's dropped. We dropped it on Wednesday. It's there. It's live. So if anyone wants to check it out, head on over. And tell me again where to see it. Head on over to News Nation's YouTube page. Hit the podcast tabs, and you will see me sitting there smiling, Megan Medic Unreported, and it's in there waiting for you. Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.